Welcome to episode 53 of the Luke Macias Show. We are bringing a story to you today of something that's going down in Austin. I haven't talked a whole lot about the Austin homeless crisis, but it's been going on throughout the latter half of 2019, and we're now in 2020, and it's getting discussed. A recent development was something that was brought to light regarding the personal recognizant bond program that Austin implemented in 2017. And if that sounds complex and complicated, it kind of is. But honestly, it only took us about 15 minutes sitting down with Brad Johnson, a reporter at the Texan, to really break this story down and bring it to you. I think it is applicable because this is a huge issue going on in a city that is the furthest left city in Texas. And some of the leftist policies that are being implemented are now kind of coming to light, spurned on by the homeless policy in 2019, which is created a major problem. And then some of these other reforms that the city implemented over the last couple of years are now having consequences to them. So the governor has come out on this, and some other Republicans have opposed the city's policies on this. And so we just kind of bring that to light and talk about it. I think you'll really enjoy the conversation. It's about an 18-minute conversation, and then we're going to go from there to my birthday message because, I mean, it's Monday. It's now the 27th, I think. But my birthday was on the 22nd, January 22nd. And so I sent a message out. Some of you might have seen it. But for those of you who didn't, you will get that message after the conversation with Brad. Thank you so much for staying plugged in and continuing to allow us to give you information that we feel like is relevant for the future of Texas. Thanks, guys. 30 years ago today, I was born, which is somewhat of a big deal for most people in their life. I've done these birthday videos off and on for the last several years, so a lot of you know that I also share a birthday with Roe versus Wade. It happened 17 years before me, in an absolute tragedy regarding the value of human life and the way our nation treats it. But something you might not know is that the day I was born was 6 weeks before my due date, and I was weighing less than 5 pounds. And I came out into this earth on my dad's 30th birthday. So today I just woke up. I'm not a big birthday guy. I don't do big parties every year. But I woke up with a sense of significance because my dad was 30 years old the day I was born, which means that he's turning 60 today. It almost seems like some type of like time-space continuum in some way. For most people, their birthdays are significant events in their life. It's a time that you can be somewhat happy to be alive, right? One of my friends texted me, congratulations on living another year. And thank you to so many of you who've already reached out with texts and Facebook comments and messages and things like that. And I will try to respond to each of you personally, but I'm kind of in a unique position because I get to also really appreciate my dad on the day that I realize that I'm really grateful for all that the Lord has let me accomplish for the last 30 years. Fatherhood is a big deal. Most of you probably know the statistics, but if you grow up in a fatherless home, you're twice as likely to kill yourself. The vast majority of mass shooters, even the recent one in LA, had a major absent father and actually had his father pass away. And that's when his life started spiraling to the point to where he decided to go take out the lives of his fellow students and his own. But I'm really grateful for my dad. Not only that I get to share a birthday with him, that he gets to turn 60 and I get to turn 30, but I think there's some unique advantages that come with having a father in your home, especially a good father. Now, if you don't, real quick, the good news is that our Heavenly Father makes it really clear that He wants to fill the gap and He wants to provide where our natural environment is not providing. So you need to know that before I go into this. But I think there are kind of two specific, unique advantages that I got to really see when I thought about it this morning when I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning. One is that strong fathers produce strong men. Now, I don't mean this in like the macho, domineering, in charge kind of strong man. The thing that I got from my dad more than anything else was his willingness to say, I'm sorry. And that's not something people often associate with strength. But my dad had a sense of humility. He wasn't perfect, but when he made a mistake, he asked for forgiveness. And that constant example that I got to witness is actually probably something I needed more than seeing somebody who was a big, macho, commandeering man. So strong men produce strong men. Servant leaders produce servants. And my dad has a heart to serve. He has a heart to engage. He has a heart to give back. He has a heart to build up. And being raised in that environment is one of the things that gives me a daily desire and call and mission to speak on things that matter, to engage and empower people who are trying to do the right thing, to be a voice for people who don't have a voice for themselves. The second unique window that you get when you have a strong relationship with your earthly father is that it is a relationship window into our relationship with our Heavenly Father. You know, marriage and the relationship that you have to your Father are two specific relationships that give us a real unique window into how our God and Creator relates with us. These are two really unique advantages that I get to really think on and consider today because I'm turning 30. People say that's a big deal. But it's also something I get to celebrate with my dad. Having fathers in our nation is a really important thing. You know, we have a major problem of children who are growing up in fatherless homes. They always say that you're more likely to grow up with a TV in your room than an active father in your house. I also thought about it specifically today, even considering the fact that my own son, my first son, came into this world when I was 29, just a couple months ago. And the fact that I'm celebrating his first year of life on this same year. But if you're a father or will be a father at some point, you need to know that your job and role is incredibly imperative when it comes to the success of society as a whole, when it comes to the strength of your children. So today, I just want us to take a second to think about that, to consider it. It's something I'm really grateful for. And I'm grateful for being alive, but I'm also grateful that 30 years ago I was born on my dad's 30th birthday. I love you, Dad. Happy birthday. Today I'm joined by Brad Johnson, making his second debut, which I think makes you the most frequented guest on the Luke Macias Show.
I am flattered.
It's a big deal. I mean, your name will be known across the Lone Star State, Brad. So I asked you to come in for a second time because you wrote an incredibly interesting piece and a new development in what has become kind of a homeless saga in Austin, Texas. So please tell our listeners just a little bit about your article.
Well, the big story about it is that it's not a new development. This has been going on for a few years now. So I got a tip a few months back, started looking into it. The reason it just came out was because it took a while to get all the documents I needed from Austin. They fought me on the FOIA, which was unsurprising. And so essentially the story is that in 2017, the city council passed a directive, and they did it through one ordinance and 2 resolutions. Okay. It had a bunch of, mumbo jumbo, typical, we want to be able to treat all defendants fair and with respect, that kind of thing. And it was a directive to the municipal court.
Yep.
But within it established this priority that city council wanted the municipal court judges to take up when they're considering bonds. Now, bonds are what you think of as letting someone out of jail after they're accused of a crime, waiting to be adjudicated. Typically, judges do not give judges give higher cash bonds to people who are either a threat to the safety of whoever the alleged victim was, or flight risks, or based on the severity of the crime. So, like, they're much less likely to give someone a low bond if they commit murder, or if they're accused of committing murder.
Yes.
But what this is talking about was stressing the use of PR bonds, now personal recognizance bonds. Essentially, you can get out without any collateral leverage for the court, get out of jail until your court date. So basically, you're let out scot-free until that point where you're expected to show up. Now, if you don't show up, almost all the time, except for unless it's like a very, very low level offense, like a drunk in public kind of thing, they issue warrants for their arrest. So none of that changed, except in terms of prioritizing PR bonds given for people that are deemed indigent. And they laid out the definition of indigent, included things like having an income less than 200% above the federal poverty level, 200% of the federal poverty level or less. People are deemed indigent. Kids, if they're still in school.
I just want to understand the 200%. Is that above the poverty level or below the poverty level? What is that considered?
So basically, whatever the federal poverty level is, double it.
Okay. That's
people,
how I heard it. I just wanted to make sure that was correct.
Yeah, people under that, everyone making under that, would qualify
indigent.
for this.
Got it.
But another aspect of it was someone who's homeless, and they put this as I believe it was the last qualifier in the thing, but it has impacted this whole Austin homeless situation, and it has been doing it for years. It's not something many people know about, and so they passed this directive, and then shortly after that, they were set to renew municipal judges, and they overhauled the system for doing it. They established this judicial committee that was not in effect before this, and city council has always appointed the municipal judges, but they kind of changed how city council itself does it. And that committee, they appointed this board, and they called it a panel. I forget the technical name, but it was a panel of various stakeholders, included defense lawyers, police. I don't know. I don't think any judicial representatives or that kind of organization was part of it, but also just lawyers in general.
Yep.
And so this group met, and they studied decisions and analyzed the quality of the municipal judges and all of that. They rated everyone excellent out of whatever scale it was that they were using.
Yep.
Poor to excellent, whatever it may be. All the judges that were up for renewal were rated excellent. And so they issued this new practice for the judges to write personal assessment essays. Most of the judges, or the purpose of the essays were to, let me find the direct quote, because this was from the chief of staff of Councilman Jimmy Flanagan, who headed up the judicial committee. And it read, "The city council recently passed resolution, blah, blah, blah," the resolution in question, outlining their goals and objectives for the municipal court. Please describe how you see your role as a municipal judge in implementing these goals. So that was the prompt that they were given. All the judges wrote essays. We got a hold of all of them.
Okay.
And there's one particular one that stuck out. And I actually spoke to this guy. His name's Witcher McCullough, former municipal court judge. He was not renewed. But before that decision happened, he raised question in his essay about the ethical propriety of this request. And he cited a couple different canons. And frankly, I went through the judicial canon and looked at it, and these stuck out too. One of them is judges are supposed to refrain from making public comment on how they're going to rule on an impending hypothetical case.
Yes.
that may come before them. these essays are public record. And I don't know if the city council knew that beforehand. I mean, they should have. You can FOIA anything these days, public information request. So that right there is an issue. The second one is similar, but not related to public comment, just simply that judges are not supposed to say how they're going to rule on a particular case that may come before them.
Yeah.
And so he raised these questions, and he said that he wasn't really given due process. Now it's not a criminal proceeding, so
Correct.
I don't think it's required by law. But it's courtesy, right?
Yep.
He and the other judges who ended up not being renewed were not allowed to defend themselves in front of this panel that was making the recommendation. And so he was upset about that, told me about why he put these concerns in there, because he didn't want to open himself up to possible ethical violation from the Texas Ethical Judicial Committee, whatever that's called. And they investigate these things. First, you have to file a complaint. They investigate it, see if there's any validity, then make a ruling. Then they can reprimand the judge.
So tell us about the particular case that this story that you wrote circled around. So that kind of builds up the problem that was when they implemented these PR bonds.
Right.
Basically saying we want to make it easier for individuals who can't afford the consequences of their action to be released and then come back.
Can I build up into that real quick?
Yeah.
So the justification said back then was that they gave this hypothetical situation of a woman. Actually, I don't think it was hypothetical. There was some woman who this happened to.
Okay.
She was in on a reckless driving or something like that. Very minor offense.
Yep.
And she sat in jail for 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
That's what they said this was supposed to apply to. We don't want these people. If you're even set like a $2,000 bond, these people that are indigent can't afford that.
Yep.
And so they're in jail unnecessarily for a crime that they shouldn't be in there for. And that's fine, but not all this is applying to, and it's extending to cases far more serious. For example, we got a hold of various records of people that had committed crimes such as sexual assault against child. That one stuck out to me big time, let out on PR bond, and then also violated that bond by committing another crime. And then, trafficking huge amounts of drugs. And so that all leads up to what I use to.
So the point of the PR bond is hypothetically, this is a way to let a single mother who's got a job, and if you keep her in jail for a couple days, she's going to lose her job.
Exactly.
Now she's going out, and this is a problem we have, right? Because now you have this person. Well, now our goal was not to basically make you incapable of feeding your family,
right?
And so for those situations, judges can use their discretion to say, hey. You're going to be allowed out. You're not going to pay a penalty for that. You have to come back at this time, go home and be fine. But if it's extending into these cases where, no, these are actually people we'd like to keep in jail.
Yeah.
We're not sure they're the type of people that are really going to respect the rule of law and can even come back. That becomes a bigger problem.
Exactly. And so that all builds up to what happened earlier this year in 2020, just a couple days after the new year. Dylan Woodburn, the guy who stabbed 3 people out of Freebirds and killed one, and then climbed up on the roof, jumped off, ended up dying. Clearly, a mentally insane person. If drugs probably played a role in it too. And so this was a massive story. It actually was nationwide. Sure enough, about 10 days later, it comes out that this was originally reported by Texas Jail Watch. He was released on PR bond for another offense that he had been accused of, and he was released on December 13th. So literally 3 weeks to the day that he ended up killing this man and stabbing 2 others. And so this has been happening for 3 years, and they saw this, and everyone relayed this Woodburn situation because he was homeless back to the ordinance that was
the
passed.
homeless ordinance
that everyone knows about.
Yes.
But really, it's traced back to 2017
when they implemented the PR bond policy. Now, the homeless give our listeners just a very quick kind of overview, because I think for anybody who lives in the Austin area, they see this issue being talked about more. But for listeners in various parts of the state, I mean, they're probably not as in tune with the homeless crisis that is essentially going on in Austin. So why don't you just give us a very quick overview of what that is?
Yeah, so in June, council passed an ordinance that went in effect on July 1st to decriminalize, actually just permit, frankly, because I don't think decriminalize is the word used, but permit camping and lying on any public property, minus a couple places, including City Hall. That was not allowed, still not allowed. But so what happened was you saw people come out of the woods, which is what the council's intentions were. They wanted these people to not be hidden anymore. But it caused a lot of issues. Like if you walk down on Congress Avenue, you saw people literally sleeping. Yep. Sometimes private parts are exposed. I remember that happened to me once. Other things happening. Conflicts coming. I wrote a story. I think it was in the summer, on businesses that had been affected, and one of those was Royal Blue Grocery, who was seriously considering, I don't think they ever actually did it, but closing at sunset because their workers did not feel safe, and there had been some instances. Another example was 7-Eleven on Congress. There was a point where they were calling 911 over 20 times in a single day. And so clearly this ordinance had directly resulted in a lot of problems.
Yes.
And it gained a huge backlash. I hate that using that word. It's so overused. But people were not happy with it.
Yeah.
And so they eventually rescinded parts of the rescission of the original camping ordinance. And so it's still partially in effect, but they limited it in such a way that you can't be within 15 feet of a business. A door for a business, and so that eliminates much of sidewalks that that people were just popping up on. And
yes,
that kind of thing.
Yeah, putting a tent right in front of the opening of a 7-Eleven. This is public property. I'm allowed to be here. I'm taking a bath.
Yep, and so that's pretty much where that is now. Now we've also seen the governor directing TxDOT to clean up the underpasses. So I believe it's like once a week they kind of kick everyone out. They don't say you can't come back, because they do the next day, but they clean everything up. And when they did it the first day, I believe that was in November.
Yep.
The amount of trash that had just piled up was insane. I mean, think about you and me every day, how much trash we go through.
Yeah.
Only instead it's not confined to a person's house. It's all over public property.
All under an underpass.
Yes. So
there's been some tension between the governor's office and the city regarding the homeless
policy. And even
policy.
recently, this Dylan Woodburn incident Greg Abbott after that decided to step up DPS patrols downtown and by UT. And so
basically implying that the city doesn't know how to keep their own citizens safe. So the state's going to have to
not just implying it, he's been outright saying it.
Yeah. Well, and I think the reality that the city's releasing people into public and then telling them that they are not essentially kept from or regulated in any way, and then those people are going around, and it's not hyperbolic to say they're killing people, now. I mean, so it's the worst of the worst. It's kind of come full circle regarding our policies. But to your point, one of the things I think you brought light to is the fact that this probably is an even bigger story because of all the controversy around the homeless situation, but actually the policy that allowed Mr. Woodburn to go out and to be put in this situation was actually a policy passed in 2017 regarding personal recognizance bonds. And to your other point, what you're telling us is that it looks like these PR bonds are not being used to simply help a single mother who really is not in a situation to be held into jail while she's got her kids, and now they're going into CPS custody or somebody else is taking them over. Like, let's not go there. Let's let this person out.
Right.
They're being used, and the judges that are there are using their discretion to use PR bonds for a myriad of even potentially violent crimes, if you're talking about sexual assault of somebody. And I guess that makes sense, since it seems like the city of Austin actually kicked out anybody who they didn't think was all on board the PR bond train.
Exactly.
Right? So, I mean, it might have been different if they had kept the municipal judges that had discretion. I'm sure those people were not wholeheartedly against ever using a PR bond.
Right.
But they had concerns around it. And if you only fill it with people who are just believing that essentially we shouldn't keep people in jail, it seems like, then you're going to have potentially dangerous criminals out on the streets.
Yes. And McCullough, who's the judge who I spoke to, and he said that there was a case. This has been building for a while. The Defense Attorneys Association, I forget the name, but whatever that's called, representatives of that got upset at him quite a bit because he was not issuing as many PR bonds as they would like, including one instance. He said he did not let a guy charged with some sort of pedophilia-related charge, did not let him out of jail. And a few people that were part of the Defense Lawyers Association, they put up a stink about it. They said it was unfair. And he stood his ground on it, McCullough did. And he was not someone that was opposed to using PR bonds. He told me another story about a guy who, similar to the single mom kind of situation, the guy was in for something minor, and he was not a flight risk, but he was, if he was put in jail to wait for his court date, he would miss a job shift, and then he'd lose that, and then that causes the very spiral that the city council said they wanted to prevent.
Yes.
And so this guy has some track record of doing that. They fired him anyway.
Yeah.
Because he raised concerns about the validity of the request.
Yeah.
And the main thing
his concern was don't ask me exactly how I'm going to rule on a hypothetical PR bond case because you're causing me to basically, show my hand, and as a judge I'm supposed to be impartial and take each of these cases and understand the merits of each argument and then make a decision, and those decisions should vary depending on the circumstances around them.
Right. And another point to it was that he said the branches of government here are supposed to be separate.
Yep.
Now, the city council has some oversight over the municipal judges because they appoint them, but there's still got to be some separation. And you cannot have the legislative branch dictating what the judicial branch does on certain cases, period. And that's exactly what this ordinance and the resolutions did.
Well, thank you for writing the story. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. I know it's been getting talked about quite a bit, and it's, I think still for people also in other urban areas around the state, the homeless situation or these PR policies, PR bond policies might be in effect, they might not be. And so it's probably worthwhile if you're in Dallas, if you're in Houston, if you're in San Antonio, if you're in Fort Worth, to say, well, what are our policies here in the city? And, Austin's kind of getting to shine a light on these issues, and I appreciate y'all's reporting on it so that we can figure out how to implement or avoid implementing these policies in other urban areas. So thank you, Brad, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Luke.
Thank you so much for watching this video through in its entirety. If you're somebody who's been following on with the conversations and the commentary that we've been producing here, we're going to ask you to do a couple quick things. Go to lukemacias.com. You can give us your email and sign up. We will email you new content, commentary, conversations as we produce it. Also, you can, if you're on Facebook or YouTube, you can like our page, follow our page, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. This will just continue to ensure that when we produce content, it gets to you more easily. Thank you so much for continuing to support the conversations we're producing. God bless you. God bless Texas.